Finally, we've had a major death in the series just 3 episodes into the new season of Fallout, and even though the character had hardly done much, his fate will have some severe consequences. Let's get into all the civil war happening in the post-war wasteland as we explore the latest episode of Fallout Season 2, Cold as a Hot, Ending Explained. Flavor of the season is Civil War. Episode 2 had only begun to step into a world of kicking ass and taking names, with a slight tease at some characters who are going to be a significant introduction to the larger world that Fallout was presenting. While Lucy stepped into the Legion territory, the Commonwealth's liaison came for a visit to the alliance that Maximus's chapter of the Brotherhood was trying to make against the Commonwealth. Lucy was taken in as a captive by the Legion, with Lurta Legade, played by the holiday season legend Macaulay Culkin, who introduced her to what the Legion had been up to. He manages to clarify that their origin, Kaiser, that's how they pronounce Caesar, is dead, and that might just be the founder, Edward Sallow himself. And presently, who they had on the throne was just a temporary Kaiser until they got hold of the name that Caesar had written on a note in his pocket. Okay, we gotta mention 2 moments that were absolutely hilarious. Lucy correcting their historical references and terminology while being someone who might just get beheaded and have her head put on a stake. And there's the Legion facing civil war because there's another faction of them on the other side where Caesar's body was being kept, and both were attacking each other the moment one of them tried to get their hands on the note that Sallow had with him. Anyways, just like before, the Ghoul comes to Lucy's rescue after recovering from his wounds and made a deal with the Lurta Kaiser about the location of whatever was left of the NCR in return for Lucy. As they walked off in the midst of this faction of the Legion celebrating their excitement for getting hold of the NCR's location, the Ghoul glanced over some dynamite that was being kept there. Later, we see explosions in the Legion's base, and there's a chance that this faction of the group might have assumed that the other faction did it, and thus we've got a civil war between the 2 factions of the Legion. I mean, there's larger repercussions to all of this, and we might just get to see that later in the series. So that's the first ongoing civil war, and the second was triggered by none other than Maximus himself. Once Kumali Nani's Xander Harkness arrived on the scene, the alliance of the Brotherhood fell apart quickly, and whatever they had managed to form was soon dissolved. Maximus suggested killing Harkness, and it wasn't taken nicely. As he walked after being called a sword, more like a weapon for whatever their chapter of Brotherhood was getting into, Harkness met him and had a chat with him. It was clear from their conversation that Harkness desperately wanted to get Maximus on his side so that they could prevent the Brotherhood from going through with the Civil War and also prevent whatever was about to happen to the Commonwealth. But the cold fusion was a matter of utmost importance here in comparison to the rest of the things, and that's what the Commonwealth might have been really interested in. So Harkness takes Maximus on a bonding retreat as they go for a random mission as the Brotherhood, and they reach the base of operations for one of Maximus's old friends. They discover that there was a rogue robot there, and they have a little bit of fun in their soldier suits. Yeah, Maximus, how does it feel now considering you were the one stopping those other guys in the suit playing around with the bomb back in the base? Harkness also offers Maximus the super sledge, which he wasn't very good at operating, and they go in to investigate the further operations in the building only to find children, both human and ghoul. Harkness asks for the human children to stand aside and prepares to kill the ghoul kids only for Thaddeus to pop up from under a desk to stop him, but Harkness was hell-bent on destroying them. Meanwhile, Maximus, who had been somewhat nervous in the suit, was trying to convey that they shouldn't be killing kids either, but seeing that darkness wasn't going to stop anytime soon, he brought the super sledge down on his head and crushed it. Yeah, even though that might have been the best use of the super sledge so far in the episode, Maximus triggered the Civil War by doing the very thing that Quintus had suggested against doing, all because he was trying to save Thaddeus once again. Here we have 2 civil wars triggered around the same time, and the people behind them are none other than the very people we were following throughout the first season, Maximus, Lucy, and the Ghoul. Well, I'll be seeing you. I'm sure you will. What will Cooper Howard do? Throughout the episode, one of the major arcs running in the background was Cooper Howard's questioning of the task he had been given, killing Robert House. He ends up meeting an old friend, Corporal Charlie Whitknife, at a fundraiser at an American Legion post, and they end up talking about Cooper's latest mission. Even though Charlie doesn't say much about it right away, he will definitely have a strong influence over Cooper's decision. But then Cooper ends up meeting an individual who is a bit of a surprise, since it was none other than House himself. It was almost as if House knew what Cooper was going to do, and as we know from the teasers, they will come across each other. So he goes to Vegas with Barb. Even though their conversation was short, it's not going to be something that Cooper will forget anytime soon.
Meanwhile, Charlie reminds Cooper that the people at the fundraiser are those who had killed multiple people, and House was just one man, apart from the fact that the man was building a weapon system in Vegas. Later, Charlie shares a story from their war days, and that's precisely when it hits Cooper what he has to do. Killing House might just be the best option for the future of the world, and that's what's most important at a time when the people were pacing for an imminent nuclear threat. We know that Cooper will be going to Vegas to meet House, but the fact that he has already seen House might work against him and prevent him from going through with the mission. As the Ghoul himself said, House is known for planning ahead, and what happened at the fundraiser is a clear indication of that. But as House prepared for his mission, the Ghoul went ahead and got a bit of his humanity back in the process of saving Lucy. Did the Ghoul save the NCR? The Ghoul was still recovering and realizing that the Legion was divided, so saving Lucy would actually pit him against two different armies, so he went to look for reinforcements. When he arrived at the new California Republic base, he found it in absolute tatters. He did meet Victor there, and the Securitron mentioned that Rangers were operating elsewhere. The robot also dropped some major info about its creator, but we'll discuss that later.
His fate right away. Is Robert House still alive? During his search for reinforcements, the Ghoul reaches what used to be the NCR base, only to find the Securitron Victor there in a malfunctioning state. Securitrons were really effective robots from Robco with a top-heavy design, and even though we saw Harkness and Maximus destroy one with relative ease, they were supposed to be pretty effective. It was Robert House's idea to use the Securitrons, and as some of them strayed outside the New Vegas region, he couldn't control them anymore. He thus created Victor with the autonomy to go beyond the borders and a friendly cowboy personality. Even though Victor can charm you with his folksy and warm cowboy persona, it won't take long for him to get into some serious action. After all, he's carrying out the orders of a mad genius. When the Ghoul stumbled upon Victor, it was almost as if Victor had just woken up after a long slumber and tried to make a proper conversation through its glitches. In fact, he had spent the last 10 years thinking he was a soda machine until the Ghoul used his name. So it might be difficult to trust anything this robot says, and that's why when the Ghoul asked him about House's fate, it wasn't clear if the robot was entirely over, even though he stated that House was dead. But then he does mention that one of the plans that House had for staying alive was also to get his hands on cold fusion. In fact, he goes on to mention that House didn't get a hold of the cold fusion because of something that the Ghoul did. And if you know what we know, then you know the entire Cooper-Howard arc might be heading in this direction. But the question remains, is Robert House alive? Because the Ghoul is pretty sure that House isn't someone who can be killed that easily. They're not kids, they're abominations, and so are you. Predictions for episode 4. Now Cooper is heading to Vegas and taking on Mulaver's mission, and there's a chance that we'll finally get to witness what happened during the interaction between them, where House was aware of what Cooper was supposed to do. Maybe Cooper will go through with his mission, or just do enough to make sure that cold fusion doesn't fall into his hands and instead lands in the hands of the Brotherhood. But one thing that's becoming more apparent as we proceed into the story.